Their sensors said no threat detected. Then, the humans struck the Krell warship's alarm should have screamed. It stayed silent. Commander Vexstar watched his tactical display with 6 eyes, each pair processing different threat vectors. The human vessel drifted 300 meters away, its hull breached in 17 places, atmosphere venting in frozen clouds. Life support was offline. Weapons were cold. The scanning array detected no power signatures above ambient radiation. Confirmed kill, Vexstar announced to his bridge crew. Mark the coordinates and prepare to move on. His weapons officer, Zeln, tilted his armored head. Commander, standard protocol requires we verify no survivors. Look at the readings, Zeln. Nothing alive could exist in that wreck. Their fusion core is dead. Internal temperature is minus 40 degrees. Save our resources for actual threats. The Krell had been hunting human ships for 3 weeks since the border conflict began. They had destroyed 14 so far. Humans were primitive, their technology decades behind Krell advancement. Their ships were slow, their weapons weak, their tactics predictable. This one had tried to run, it failed. Vexstar turned toward the navigation console. Set course for the Deneb sector. Intelligence reports, another human convoy. Course plotted, Commander. The warship's engines hummed, building power for the jump to faster than light speed. Vexstar allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The humans had been bold to challenge Krell territorial claims, but boldness without capability was just foolishness. They would learn. They would surrender. They would accept Krell's supremacy. On his display, the human wreck continued its lazy tumble through space, silent and dark. Then it moved. Not a drift. Not momentum. A deliberate rotation, precise and controlled. Zeln saw it too. Commander, the human ship just adjusted attitude. Impossible. Our sensors show no active systems. Visual confirmation, sir. It's reorienting. Vexstar's primary eyes snapped back to his screen. The human vessel had stopped tumbling. Its bow now faced directly toward them. How? Every scan said the ship was dead. No power. No life signs. No thermal signatures beyond residual heat. Zeln, full scan. Everything. Scanning now. Commander, I'm reading the same data. That ship is completely inert. No energy output at all. Then, how is it moving? Before Zeln could answer, the human ship's hull split open along the dorsal surface. Not from damage, from design. Panels retracted with mechanical precision, revealing a weapon neither of them recognized. It was massive, taking up nearly a third of the ship's interior volume. Evasive action, Vexstar shouted. Too late. The weapon fired. Not energy, not projectiles. Something else entirely, something their sensors couldn't classify because they weren't programmed to recognize it as a threat. The Krell warship's shields did nothing. The armor did nothing. The countermeasures did nothing. The last thing Commander Vexstar saw was his own bridge tearing apart from the inside out, and he finally understood. The humans had never been running. They had been positioning. Lieutenant Jake Morrison breathed through his teeth, forcing each inhalation to stay shallow and controlled. The air in his suit had maybe 20 minutes left, and he needed to make every breath count. Around him, the bridge of the merchant vessel Calypso resembled a freezer, ice crystals coating every surface, emergency lights casting red shadows through the frozen condensation. His crew floated beside him in the zero gravity, 12 men and women who had volunteered for what Command called a contingency operation. Jake called it a suicide mission with better paperwork. Target eliminated, confirmed Lisa Hayes from her station, her voice crackling through the local comm system, the only thing still running on battery reserves. Krell warship is breaking apart. Good. Jake pulled himself to the tactical display, one of 3 systems they had kept active through the entire ambush setup. Time until their backup arrives? 8 minutes, maybe less if they got a distress signal out. They didn't. Eric made sure of that. Eric Chen, their communications specialist, gave a thumbs up from where he floated near the dead console array. The jamming package had done its job, a narrowband suppressor that the Krell sensors read as background radiation, just one of dozens of tricks human engineers had developed in the 3 weeks since the war started. 3 weeks. That's all it took for humanity to realize the galaxy's established powers saw them as primitives, as obstacles, as prey. The Krell had fired first, destroying a mining station without warning. 5,000 people had died. The Galactic Council had expressed concern and done nothing. Other species had watched and waited to see how the humans would respond. The Krell had expected surrender. They got something else entirely. Jake, we need to move, said Danny Foster. the pilot whose hands had guided the Calypso through its death spiral performance. "If more Krell show up, we won't fool them twice." "Agreed. Lisa, is the package ready? Charging now." 90 seconds. Jake checked his suit's heads-up display. 18 minutes of air left. Cutting it close, but that was the job. The Calypso had been a real merchant ship once, hauling grain and manufactured goods between colonies. Then the war started, and Command had approached Jake with a proposal. They needed volunteers for a special operations unit, people willing to fly ships modified in ways that violated every safety regulation ever written. The gravity generator had been ripped out to make room for the weapon. Life support had been reduced to emergency backup only, giving them just enough air to survive in suits while they played dead. The fusion reactor could be shut down completely and restarted, something that normally took hours of preparation but which Eric and his team had managed to reduce to 4 minutes through modifications that would make any engineer quit in protest. Everything about the Calypso was a lie designed to look like a truth. Damaged hull plating that could retract. A venting atmosphere that was actually just stored compressed air with thermal flares mixed in. Power signatures carefully masked to read as a dying ship, when in reality the weapon system had been charging for the past 6 hours, drawing from batteries that took up the entire lower cargo deck. The Krell sensors were good, some of the best in known space, but they scanned for energy, for heat, for electromagnetic emissions. They scanned for threats they understood. Humans had spent 3 weeks learning what the Krell expected to see, then showing them exactly that, while hiding something completely different underneath. "Package ready," Lisa announced. "We have a firing solution on the incoming ships." Jake pulled himself to the observation port, looking out at the debris field that had been a Krell warship. Bodies floated among the wreckage, their armored suits offering no protection against a weapon that worked by exciting the molecular bonds of matter itself until they tore apart. Brutal. Effective. The kind of thing humans were apparently very good at developing when someone made the mistake of threatening their survival. How many incoming? 3 destroyers coming in fast. They think they're responding to a distress call. They're going to find something else. Eric, you ready? Broadcasting the recording now. The recording was Commander Vexthar's last transmission, carefully edited and looped. To any Krell ship approaching, it would sound like their commander was reporting the destruction of a human vessel and requesting immediate support to hunt down other targets in the sector. It would come in confident, scanning for human ships, finding the Calypso's wreck and dismissing it as already confirmed dead. They would make the same mistake Vexthar had made. "New contacts on approach vector," Danny called out. 3 minutes to weapon range. Jake gripped a handhold, feeling the cold of the metal even through his glove. His crew floated in silence, each one knowing their role, each one having made peace with the fact that they might not see another sunrise. The Krell had started this war thinking humans were weak. Every species in the galaxy had agreed. Humanity had no great fleets, no battle stations, no warrior traditions spanning millennia. What humanity had was spite, creativity, and a stubborn refusal to die quietly. "Lisa, weapons free on my mark." "Copy that." "Danny, soon as we fire, I want emergency power to engines." "We're not going to get a third chance at this trick." "Understood." The Krell destroyers came screaming in, their formation tight and confident. Jake could see them on the tactical display, 3 blips moving in perfect coordination, the pride of a species that had never known defeat in living memory. He smiled in his helmet, cold and grim. Fire. The Calypso shuddered as the molecular disruptor fired again, its beam invisible but devastating. The first Krell destroyer folded in on itself like paper, its shields useless against a weapon that bypassed them entirely by targeting the atomic structure of the hull itself. The second destroyer tried to veer away, but the beam tracked it with computer precision, slicing through the engineering section. Secondary explosions bloomed in silence as the ship's reactor went critical. The third destroyer got smart. Its captain dumped all power to engines and ran, jumping to faster-than-light speed in a maneuver that should have torn the ship apart, but somehow held together. Jake watched it vanish from the tactical display. "One got away," Lisa said, her voice tight. "I know." Jake activated the ship-wide comm. "All hands, emergency restart protocol. We need power in 3 minutes, or we're dead when reinforcements arrive." The crew moved with practiced efficiency, each person floating to their stations. The Calypso might look like a wreck, but every system had been designed for rapid deployment. Eric began the reactor restart sequence while Danny prepared the navigation computer. Lisa secured the weapons system, bleeding off residual charge that could have cooked them all if left unchecked. Jake pulled himself to the engineering console, monitoring the restart. The fusion reactor hummed to life, temperature climbing, magnetic containment field stabilizing. 2 minutes. They had 2 minutes before Krell Command realized they had a serious problem. The galaxy was going to realize humanity was not what anyone expected. Across the sector, in the Krell Command Station orbiting their colony world of Tekresh Prime, Admiral Krushnell received the report with all 4 of his hands clenched in rage. 1 warship destroyed, 3 destroyers, 2 destroyed, and 1 fleeing in panic. All by a single human vessel that their sensors had marked as a non-threat. "Explain this," he demanded of his intelligence officer. "We cannot, Admiral. The sensor logs from the surviving destroyer show the human ship registered as completely inert until moments before it fired. No power signature, no thermal emissions, nothing that would indicate it was operational. Then our sensors are flawed." "Negative, sir. We have tested them against all known species, stealth technology. They are functioning perfectly. The humans are doing something we had never encountered." Krushnell studied the tactical display. The human ship, this Calypso, had vanished shortly after the attack, jumping away before more Krell forces could respond. Intelligence had tracked it to a mining asteroid in the Ross system, where it had docked and apparently undergone repairs. Repairs that looked real but might be another deception. "This changes our assessment of the humans," Krushnell said slowly. "We assumed they were technologically inferior. Perhaps they are simply different. Admiral Command is demanding a response. The Council of Teeth requires we demonstrate Krell superiority. If we allow this insult to stand, other species may question our strength." Krushnell knew the politics well. The Krell had built their empire on fear and demonstrated power. They had challenged humanity, expecting an easy victory, a way to claim resource-rich human worlds without serious opposition. The Galactic Council would have condemned it, imposed sanctions perhaps, but ultimately accepted the outcome as they always did when a stronger species absorbed a weaker one. But if humanity proved to be anything other than weak, if they could fight back effectively, then the entire foundation of Krell expansion was at risk. Other species would take note. Old enemies would grow bold. "Prepare the 3rd Fleet," Krushnell ordered. 40 ships. I want that human vessel found and destroyed, and I want every witness to know it. No more small engagements. We will crush them with overwhelming force. Yes, Admiral. And if the human ship uses the same tactics, then we will adapt. They cannot hide from an entire fleet. They cannot destroy 40 ships with 1 weapon. We will surround them, saturate the space with fire, and turn them to atoms. The intelligence officer saluted and left to carry out the orders. Krushnell remained at the tactical display, studying the data. The humans had surprised them once. He would not allow it to happen again. On the Ross asteroid station, Jake and his crew were not repairing the Calypso. They were preparing it for the next phase. Captain Nicole Sanders, Jake's commanding officer, floated in the docking bay with her arms crossed. She was 50 years old, gray hair cut military short, with eyes that had seen 3 colonial wars before the Krell made their mistake. "You poked the hornet's nest," she said. "That was the mission, Captain. And now they're going to come at you with everything they have. Intelligence says the Krell are mobilizing their 3rd Fleet. 40 ships, Jake. You can't fight 40 ships." "I don't plan to fight them. I plan to make them think they're fighting me while something else happens." Nicole smiled. "The Admiral briefed me on Phase 2. It's insane. It's war. Insane is all we have left." She handed him a data chip. Updated intelligence on Krell fleet movements, communications protocols, and command structure. "We've been listening to their network since day 1. They're not as secure as they think." Jake pocketed the chip. "How long until they find us?" 6 hours, maybe 8. "They're searching every asteroid field between here and their border. You need to be gone before then." "We will be. The crew needs rest, resupply, and 4 hours of maintenance. Then we move." Nicole looked at the Calypso, its hull still showing the false damage they had painted on, the retractable panels closed and invisible, the weapon system hidden beneath layers of structural camouflage. "That ship is a work of art and a complete violation of everything we know about naval engineering. It's also the reason 12 of us are still alive when we should be dead. I know. And the Krell are going to learn that's the most dangerous thing about humanity. We don't fight the way anyone expects. We don't follow the rules. We find the gaps in how the galaxy thinks things should work, and we exploit them until the whole system breaks." Jake nodded. "That's exactly what we're going to do. The Krell want a war? We'll give them one. Just not the war they're expecting." 4 hours later, the Calypso broke orbit from the Ross asteroid, its trajectory seemingly random, jumping between systems with no clear destination. To any observer, it looked like a ship fleeing in panic, trying to shake pursuit through erratic movement. The Krell Third Fleet tracked it with grim satisfaction. Inside the Calypso, Jake studied the tactical display with cold focus. Each jump was precisely calculated, leading the Krell exactly where humanity needed them to go. The Fletcher Nebula, a massive cloud of ionized gas and dust that played hell with sensors and communications, perfect for an ambush. Perfect for making 40 ships blind. "They're taking the bait, Danny," reported from the helm. "Third Fleet is matching our course, staying just far enough back to avoid our weapon range. They learned from the destroyers," Lisa observed. "They're being cautious." "Cautious is fine. Cautious still gets them where we need them." Jake opened a channel to the coded frequency command had given him. "Shepard to Flock. We have the wolves following. ETA to the nest is 90 minutes. The response came back immediately. "Flock confirms, Shepard. We're in position and waiting. Make it count." Jake closed the channel and looked at his crew. They had been flying for 16 hours straight, operating on stim packs and pure adrenaline. Lisa's hand shook slightly as she worked her console. Eric kept blinking hard, fighting off exhaustion. Danny's jaw was clenched so tight, Jake worried about his teeth. "Listen up," Jake said. "I know you're tired. I know this has been hell. But what we're about to do is going to change this war. The Krell think they're hunting us. In 90 minutes, they're going to learn they were wrong. Stay sharp, stay focused, and we all go home." "And if we don't?" Eric asked quietly. "Then we made them pay for every human life they took, and that's worth something." The crew nodded, returning to their stations. Jake pulled himself to the observation port, watching the stars streak past as the Calypso made another jump. He thought about the 5,000 people who died when the Krell destroyed that first mining station. And women, children, all gone in an instant because the Krell wanted resources and saw humanity as too primitive to matter. The galaxy operated on rules written by species that had spent millennia perfecting warfare. Honor codes, battle doctrines, accepted practices that everyone followed. Humanity had read those rules, understood them, and then thrown them out. Because humans had learned a long time ago that rules were written by winners, and the only rule that mattered was survival. The Fletcher Nebula loomed ahead, a swirling mass of purple and blue gas lit from within by dying stars. Sensor interference was off the charts. Communication would be spotty at best. Visibility was measured in kilometers instead of millions of miles. It was beautiful and deadly, and Jake was leading 40 Krell warships straight into it. "Entering the nebula now," Danny announced. "Sensors are degrading, as expected. I'm flying on nav beacons and instruments. Keep us moving. The Krell need to follow us deep inside." On board the Krell flagship Dominance, Admiral Krushnell watched his tactical display with growing unease. The human ship had led them into the nebula, and now his sensors could barely track it through the interference. His fleet had spread out in a wide formation, trying to maintain contact with each other while pursuing the enemy. "Admiral, we are experiencing significant communication delays," his operations officer reported. "The nebula is interfering with our quantum links. Maintain formation. The humans cannot hide forever, and they cannot escape. We have them trapped." But even as he spoke, Krushnell felt the wrongness of the situation. The humans had led them here deliberately. This was not the action of a fleeing vessel. This was a plan. All ships, weapons hot. Maximum alertness. Prepare for possible ambush. The warning came too late. The Fletcher Nebula erupted with weapons fire. Not from one ship, but from dozens. Human vessels, small and fast, appeared from behind the gas clouds where they had been waiting in complete electronic silence. They swarmed the Krell fleet like insects, firing missiles and kinetic weapons at point-blank range. The Krell ships tried to respond, but their sensors were compromised, their communications were failing, and the human ships were moving in coordinated patterns that suggested they could see perfectly while the Krell were blind. "Ambush!" Krushnell roared. "All ships, defensive formation. Focus fire on the human vessels." But there was no defensive formation. The fleet was scattered across hundreds of kilometers of nebula, each ship fighting its own battle, unable to coordinate with the others. The humans had planned this perfectly, using the nebula's natural interference to neutralize the Krell's numerical advantage. A destroyer to Krushnell's left exploded, hit by 3 missiles simultaneously. A cruiser behind him reported heavy damage and falling behind. The tactical display was a mess of contacts and warnings, impossible to interpret. Then the Calypso appeared, emerging from a dense gas cloud directly ahead of the Dominance. "Fire everything," Krushnell commanded. The flagship's weapons unleashed a barrage that should have vaporized any ship in space. Energy beams, plasma torpedoes, kinetic rounds, all converging on the human vessel. The Calypso tanked the hits, its shields flaring but holding, and fired its molecular disruptor straight at the Dominants. Kreshnel had one moment to realize his shields were not going to stop this weapon, that his armor was not going to protect him, that every advantage the Krell possessed meant nothing against an enemy that fought without honor or tradition or any respect for how warfare was supposed to work. Then his ship began tearing itself apart, and Admiral Kreshnel understood in his final seconds that the humans were not going to be easy prey. They were going to be a nightmare. The battle lasted 40 minutes. When it ended, 32 Krell ships were destroyed or crippled, drifting in the nebula as wreckage. 8 ships escaped, jumping away in random directions, their crews traumatized and broken. The Third Fleet, pride of the Krell military, had been devastated by a force 1/10 its size. Jake sat in the Calypso's command chair, breathing hard, his suit's air supply down to 8 minutes. Around him, his crew worked in exhausted silence, running diagnostics on systems pushed far beyond their design limits. The molecular disruptor was offline, its power cells completely drained. The shields were at 11%. The hull had taken damage from the Dominance's final barrage, real damage this time, not the fake kind they had painted on. But they were alive. "Casualty report," Jake said quietly. 7 human ships destroyed, 94 crew lost. 15 ships damaged but operational. We got off light considering light. 94 people dead was light. Jake closed his eyes, feeling the weight of command. Those people had volunteered, had known the risks, had believed in what they were fighting for. It did not make their deaths easier to accept. "Get me command." The quantum link stabilized after a moment, the nebula's interference fading as they moved toward clear space. Admiral Patricia Hawkins appeared on the screen, her face lined with exhaustion and grim satisfaction. "Shepard, this is command. Congratulations. You just changed the course of this war. 94 people died, Admiral, and 5,000 died when the Krell attacked our station. This is war, Morrison. People die. But because of what you did today, fewer humans will die tomorrow. The Krell just learned they can't bully us. The galaxy just learned humanity fights back." Jake understood the logic. He even agreed with it. That did not make it hurt less. "What are our orders?" "Return to base. The Calypso needs serious repairs, and your crew needs rest. We have other teams ready to deploy the tactics you've proven. The Krell will think twice before attacking our territory again." "And the Galactic Council?" Hawkins smiled cold and sharp. "They've requested an emergency session. Seems they want to discuss the border conflict between humanity and the Krell. Funny how they ignored us when we were the victims, but now that we've shown teeth, suddenly everyone wants to talk peace." Jake laughed, a harsh sound. "We're not stopping, are we? Hell no. We're going to make them negotiate from a position of respect, not pity. The galaxy needs to understand that humanity is not prey. We're predators who just woke up." The transmission ended. Jake sat back, feeling every ache in his body, every hour of lost sleep, every moment of fear he had suppressed to keep functioning. They had won a battle, maybe changed the trajectory of the war. But there would be more battles, more deaths, more nights wondering if the next fight would be their last. "Commander," Danny said softly, "we're clear of the nebula. Jump coordinates locked in for home. Take us out." The Calypso jumped, leaving behind the Fletcher Nebula and its field of Krell wreckage. Behind them, rescue ships from both sides moved in, searching for survivors, documenting the battle, trying to understand what had happened. 3 weeks earlier, the galaxy had seen humanity as a minor species, technologically backward, politically irrelevant. The Krell had attacked expecting easy victory. Other species had watched expecting humanity to collapse or beg for protection from the Galactic Council. Instead, humanity had shown them something terrifying. Not superior technology, not larger fleets, not ancient warrior traditions. What humanity had was adaptability, creativity, and a fundamental refusal to accept defeat. They fought dirty. They lied. They used tactics no honorable species would consider. They turned their own weaknesses into weapons and their enemy's strengths into vulnerabilities. 1 month after the Battle of Fletcher Nebula, the Galactic Council convened on the neutral station of Concordia. Representatives from 200 species gathered to hear the case between humanity and the Krell. The Krell delegation demanded reparations for their lost fleet. The human delegation, led by Ambassador Helen Cross, listened to their complaints with polite attention. When it was her turn to speak, Ambassador Cross stood and addressed the council with calm precision. "The Krell started this war by destroying a civilian station without provocation or warning. 5,000 humans died. We asked this council for justice. We received sympathy and inaction. So we provided our own justice. The Krell learned that attacking humanity has consequences. We hope this lesson extends to all species here today. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some species supported the Krell, citing tradition and established power structures. Others, smaller species who had suffered under the Krell's expansion, quietly supported humanity. The debate raged for hours. In the end, the council reached a compromise. The border between human and Krell space would be redrawn, giving humanity sovereignty over the disputed territories. Reparations would be paid by the Krell for the destroyed station. Both sides would cease hostilities immediately. The Krell delegation accepted, with barely concealed rage. They had lost territory, lost face, lost their reputation as an unstoppable force, all because they had underestimated a species they thought was primitive. Ambassador Cross signed the treaty with a steady hand, then returned to Earth with news that would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. They were no longer victims or supplicants. They were a power to be reckoned with, a species that fought back, a reminder to every other civilization that underestimating humanity was a fatal mistake. On the Calypso, being rebuilt in a military shipyard, Jake Morrison watched the news coverage with his crew. They had survived. They had won. They had shown the galaxy that humanity's sensors might not be the best, their ships might not be the fastest, their weapons might not be the most powerful, but when humans said they were not a threat, everyone should start worrying. Because the most dangerous weapon humanity possessed was not technology, it was the stubborn, creative, relentless refusal to accept defeat, combined with a willingness to fight in ways no one expected. The Krell had learned this lesson. The galaxy was learning it now. And anyone else who thought humanity was easy prey would learn it soon enough.